All right, good to see you all, figuratively speaking. But I hope you, again, have created an environment, virtual students, conducive to learning. And I hope when y'all are studying, you sit down at a desk, got your laptop. It'd be nice if you got double monitors because you can look up, you can always write down the definition 10 times, then look up on YouTube, watch some knucklehead talk about it again, then go to Google, example of, one thing I used to do, legal actions involving blah, blah, blah. When I see somebody suing somebody for something and I see it spelled out, I kind of go, okay, now I get the concept. I get understanding. Whatever, when I vacuum, I do sideways and I come in the sideways and I come this way. So, just because your first set of search terms don't help you, use another set of search terms. Like I might do, why would I do tenants in common versus joint tenancy? Somebody's going to come explain to you, well, this is, good for this situation. No, it's reading that helps you, don't research stuff like you're a student. Research stuff like you're a person in a real estate situation wanting to know about this. So anyway, we're doing 3 chapters today, 5, 6, and 7. So let's get started. Page 67, land description. Do y'all know what kind of clothes real estate wears? A dress. Yeah, it's kind of corny. On page 67, we are doing Unit 5, land description, but I don't want to tell y'all a story. You might find this story inspirational, and we all need inspiration at some point in time. So this is a true story. I'm not going to tell you that story right now. It's out of context. I got another place in the book I'm going to tell you that story. But our learning objectives on this fairly simple. This isn't a big deal. We're going to identify methods that are used in describing real estate, and we're going to explain the processes involved in identifying and measuring property rights. So let's turn the page. So the premise is legal descriptions. My name is Mark Yarbrough. Y'all know that. And I have found out in a Google search that there are 4 other Mark Yarbroughs in Metro Birmingham. So if a sheriff was trying to serve me some paperwork, might have a problem trying to find me because there's more than one Mark Yarbrough. But there's only one Mark Yarbrough with this fingerprint. So you have a street address, and your street address for your property that you own is like your home name. It's not precise enough to find it. You may live at 1141 Citation Boulevard. I bet you there might be another 1141 Citation Boulevard in Alabama, if not the United States. So real estate has a fingerprint or analogous to a fingerprint, and it's called a legal description. So at the top of page 68, methods of describing real estate, we see that there are 3 basic methods currently being used to describe real estate. You see them identified. Guys, you know my theme, but I get mad at the nerd words. Meets and bounds. Meets 400 years ago meant measurements. Bounds meant boundaries. Why we don't call it that now, I don't know. But meets and bounds, y'all, is well, look over to the right. On page 69, you see an illustration. Above that illustration, you see an indented paragraph. Let's read it. This is a meets and bounds description of the property in the illustration. Attractive land located in Red Skull, Boone County, Virginia, described as follows. Beginning at the intersection of the east line of Jones Road and the south line of Skull Drive, then east along the south line of Skull Drive, 200 feet, then south in a 15-degree easterly direction for 216 feet, more or less, to the center thread of, you get the point. If your property has a meets and bounds description, more than likely it's not been developed. But back on page 68, you see it toward the bottom, the meets and bounds method of land description is the oldest found in the United States, was used in the original 13 colonies. Go into the middle of the paragraph and highlight that bold print, point of beginning, POB. Every legal address every meets and bounds has to have a point of beginning. One time in class, within about 6 months, we were in this chapter and I was using an example. I said, let's say you're going to use MapQuest to get directions from your house to somewhere. And a bunch of my students, looked at me like a puppy. I said, so y'all don't know what MapQuest is? They, no, sir. I was like, my God. And one of the kids, he was like, you old school, Mr. Mark. Oh, MapQuest. You make fires with sticks? Man, when MapQuest came about 25 years ago, it was a gift from God. Do y'all remember? Anybody in here remember when it came about? Oh my gosh. Birmingham's easy to get around, Birmingham downtown, because we got streets and avenues numbered. You go to Atlanta, they don't have a numbered streets and avenues. Every street's got its own name. So if I ever had to go to Atlanta, my MapQuest was a godsend. It was a little irritating. Go 14 feet in this direction, take 3 steps in this direction. But overall, and still today, I use it as a backup, because a lot of times you get out in the country or somewhere, your GPS ain't working. So you got the MapQuest as a backup. But nevertheless, if I'm going to use MapQuest and I want to know how to get to my house, to my friend's house, what's the first thing I got to put in? Where I'm leaving. The point of beginning. That's the thought. MapQuest, point of beginning. Where am I leaving from? In the illustration, the star is the point of beginning. That's where they started describing the property. Go 2 lines down, and in parentheses, you'll see an italicized word called monuments. Monuments. If I told you how to get to my house, I'd tell you what exit to take off the interstate. I say take a left off the exit, go 2.1 miles, take a right at a light, go another 1.7 miles, take a left at Mickey D's, go down 1.8 miles, take a right at what appears to be a crack house, go down another. We use landmarks, right? Second Light, Mickey D's. They call landmarks monuments. All right, now you see the word landmarks right there before the parentheses. So in the left-hand margin, you can put me, landmark, nerds, monument. Okay, because don't expect to remember the examples I use in class. You'll forget them. But if that's going to help you remember what a monument is, me and you, we call them landmarks. Nerds call them monuments. Now, what is a monument? A monument is, I was trying to see if it's described so you can just highlight it. Well, it doesn't have examples. There's probably someone. A monument is usually, it could be a wooden stake. Could be a piece of rebar that's been hammered into the ground. A lot of times, about this high out of the ground, it'll have a colored cap on the top. Sometimes it's a concrete plate, like home plate on a baseball field. It's just something to let you know you've reached the end of a segment and to now go into the next segment. That's all. So the 2 things we want to walk away from meets and bounds knowing as far as potential exam is it's got to have a POB. Now let me throw a twist in there. Sometimes they'll call it a POC, interchangeable. Point of commencement is POC. To commence is to begin. So POB and POC, same crap. The nerds thought POB wasn't jacked up enough, so they throw in their POC. But we want to know POB and we want to know monuments. Okay? Those are the 2 things we want to know walking away from meets and bounds. You see monuments defined in the first sentence of the next paragraph. They are fixed objects. Oh, there's where I was looking, damn it. They are fixed objects used to identify the POB in all corners of the parcel or ends of boundary segments. Gives in there. It says in colonial times, could have been a stone, large tree, lake, stream. But you see today, monuments are iron pins or concrete posts. So let's move on. No. On page 69, again, you don't forget, you always may be about 2 inches behind me. In that little white space right in the middle of the page, in other words, to the right of the illustration. Don't take up the whole white space, but write stake survey. And when I say stake, like a vampire steak, not like a ribeye. S-T-A-K-E. Stake survey. And why am I asking you to write this down? I've heard it's on the exam. Easiest to identify boundaries. That's the definition. Easiest type of survey used to identify boundaries. So you could just write easiest to identify boundaries. What kind, where might you see a state property in a new subdivision? Am I wrong? Am I right? You ever walk a new subdivision where there ain't no homes being built? They just staked off the lots. You may want to see how big your lot is. You know, you can walk it and see the wooden stakes. So a stake survey would be the easiest survey. In other words, they're telling you there's a few different kinds of surveys. The stake survey would be the one easiest to identify boundaries. So now we turn to page 70, or, you know, again, don't forget, you always gonna, sometimes some of you may be 2 inches behind me, but I'm at rectangular survey system. That's where I'm at. This is the second of the three. We got meets and bounds, rectangular survey, lot and block. That's at the top of page 68. We just covered meets and bounds, so now we're doing the second of the three, rectangular survey. You look at the illustration. You see that the United States is cut up into a grid, not a perfect grid, but, you know, a grid's going to have horizontal lines and vertical lines. They don't call them horizontal and vertical. They call them meridians and baselines. Baseline are the horizontal lines. Think of the base of something, you know, the base of a building. So baselines are the horizontal. The verticals, they call meridians. Now they intersect and they form big old squares. Guys, have you ever coming in, flying, landing on an airplane, look down at the earth, it looked like a checkerboard? You see the earth all cut up in a little square? That's what you're seeing. You're seeing the earth cut up into sections and townships, which we're talking about. So they talk about this over the next couple of pages. Get to the point where it says townships. You see tiers, you see ranges, and then find townships. When the horizontal and the vertical range lines intersect, they form squares, or called townships. These are the basic units of the rectangular survey system. Each township is 6 miles square. Whenever you see 6 miles square, understand that that's different than 6 square miles. 6 miles square is literal. It is a square that is 6 miles, but 6 miles, but 6 miles, but 6 miles. And if you remember from grammar school, area is length times width. So if it's 6 miles by 6 miles, 6 times 6 is 36 square miles. They distinguish the two in that paragraph for you. But let's keep trucking through, all right? Now, when we come over here to the next page, page 72, look for the paragraph called sections. So, and look at the illustration right below that paragraph. What you're looking at, the entire square is called a township. But a township is further divided into 36 sections. Notice the shaded section. Why is 16 shaded? Because back in the day, colonial days, every township, section 16 within every township was reserved for the schoolhouse. That's going to be on your exam. Section 16 was reserved for the schoolhouse. Now, the next illustration, it's at the top of page 73 on mine. You see a township cut up into different ownerships. That's what you see when you are landing in an airplane if you are flying over an agrarian area. I was stationed in Fort Riley, Kansas. So, Fort Riley, Kansas in the Midwest is like Alabama, a lot of growing stuff. But it's completely flat, gee whiz. And I remember flying into Manhattan, and you could see that for miles. But you got to be in the Midwest to see stuff like that. You might see something in California, I bet, if you're in North California landing in an airplane. They got a lot of stuff growing in North California. But anyway, look at here. We'll look on page 73, that illustration. Let's say you owned one of those parcels. Now look 2 paragraphs below the illustration and indented. You see the description of one of those parcels. The south half of the north half of the southeast quarter of section 11, township 8, north, range 6, west of the 4th principal meridian. What I'd like for you to do, hopefully y'all are all with me. What I'd like for you to do is take that description I just read to you and circle where the south half of the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter of section 11. Circle that. Because where it begins, township 8, north, range 6, west of the 4th principal, we don't need to know all that crap. But I want you to circle the south half of the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter of section 11. See, it'd be like me if you said, Mark, what's your address where you live? And I tell you, 619 Citation Boulevard, Calera, Alabama, Shelby County, southeastern United States, northern hemisphere. That's a bunch of BS, right? You don't need to know all that. That's what all that township 8, north, range 6, west crap is. The part I told you to circle would be all you need to know. The box, Calera, Alabama, 35040. Here's how you would locate that. Well, let me pull up the whiteboard. I can take that description and locate it within a township. What the? Connection error on the whiteboard load. Well, whiteboard ain't working. I don't know if it's the rain and well, it ain't raining. I guess that's just the old person in me. Rain always jacks stuff up, Why is the washer and dryer not working? Well, it's raining outside. Why is Aunt Jane crazy as hell? Well, it's raining outside. All right, sorry about that. I'll have to do it later, maybe in a few minutes or an hour or so. It'll work. I don't know if it's the internet being tricky right now. But when we take a break, maybe I can get some admin of mine to work on it. Nevertheless, let's keep trucking. So at this point, before we keep trucking, we have discussed 2 of the 3 methods that are used to legally describe real estate. Legally describe real, like you can describe it illegally. Mr. Yarbrough, you can't describe real estate like that. Turn around, put your hands behind your back. But we've done meets and bounds. We got that out of the way. The original method used to describe real estate in the United States. And we learned that we only need to know 2 things, POB, and what was the other one? Monuments, landmarks. Yep. And now we've talked about the townships and sections, which is the rectangular survey. We're going to talk more about this. We're just taking small bites as we head down the train track. And now we're going to talk about the third. So over here on page 74, you see lot and block. So if your property has a lot and block description, it's been developed. Look to the right. You see the plat of a subdivision. A little 8-lot subdivision, not a big subdivision. But you see all of the pertinent measurements and you see property cut up into lots. Now, when you see lot and block, sometimes subdivisions have multiple blocks. Sometimes they're called phases. Sometimes they're called blocks, but you may live in lot 17 of block 2 of Marywood subdivision, you know. Y'all, whenever you hear me, I think I've already told y'all this. Whenever you hear me say, this is likely to be on the exam, put a star right there, highlight this, this is like, y'all know I get that from nuggets from students. We had that conversation because they will not help us instructors. So I have never gotten a nugget as long as I've been teaching this, telling me there's a lot and block question on the exam. There are rectangular surveys, you know, about township sections. There are meets and bounds, but I've never had a student tell me there's a lot and block question. But regardless, we have now discussed the 3 methods used to describe real estate legally, and we're not done with them. We'll revisit them. Top of page 76. Top paragraph. Highlight the last sentence in the top paragraph. It reads, when a survey also shows the location, size, and shape of the buildings on the lot, it's referred to as a spot survey. So more often than not, the survey just shows the dimensions, kind of like the plat that we just looked at. But if the survey also indicates, just as you highlighted, location, size, and shape of any improvements on the property, then you can call it a spot survey. I don't know why the word spot is used. I don't know. I guess that's just a matter of memorization on your part. It doesn't really make sense to where you can tie it to what its purpose is, but spot survey. It's a survey that indicates the structures. So we've talked about 2 surveys that could be potential questions. Stake survey, that's the easiest one to locate the dimensions of the property. And now we've talked about a spot survey. At the bottom of the page 76, measuring elevations. Y'all, I was a boy just like a normal, healthy boy. I went through my dinosaur stage. You know, why does every boy go through the dinosaur stage? You know, did y'all, any of y'all got sons? Did they go through a dinosaur stage? You got to. You got to buy them the dinosaurs. I was in the encyclopedia. Thank God my parents bought D. So I was always looking at the dinosaurs. You know, it's a weird stage boys go through. But there was a stage I went through where I was into skyscrapers. So stupid, guys. I didn't have the internet. All right. But I remember there were buildings and, you know, around the world competing with each other, arguing, we're 6 inches taller than you know. The heaviest corner on earth is what they called it. Yeah. It's when they it was the last building before they had to use steel girders. Love trivia, man. Thank you for adding that. Yeah, I remember as a kid when I was in the stage in the skyscraper. So I'm reading about elevations. And I just happened to read the newspaper something about Mount Cheehaw, you know, Chilton County and other counties. They said it was like 10,758 feet and 4 inches. I said, how in the hell can they be that exact 4 inches? I mean, have y'all ever seen a mountain? It kind of peters out for 100 or 200 miles. It's like, where are they putting the bottom of the tape to be exact within 4 inches on a mountain? The answer is, where can you highlight it? Is on page 77, datum. Datum is a point, line, or surface from which elevations are measured or indicated. So from this point on, and for the rest of your life, when you hear how tall a building is, how tall a mountain is, where they put the bottom of the tape, it's called the datum. Now, the datum and sea level, y'all, are first cousins, right? They're not the same, but they're related to each other. Y'all know what sea level is. Sea level ain't something you can put an ashtray and a beer on. You can't touch it. You know, I might tell y'all right now, I'm 2 feet above sea level. You can't see it. Datum is related to sea level. It's something like that. You know, New York Harbor establishes sea level. I only know that because I read it, you know, and when I was reading this to prepare to teach it. So we know that datum is the base for elevations determined. We see at the bottom of page 77, monuments. We've already talked about them. Landmarks, us. Monuments, nerds. Now, right before we turn the page, again, y'all may be a couple inches before me. Benchmarks. Let's all break our phone out real quick. So once you got your phone, turn it on, go to your search bar, and you're going to type in survey, 2 words, survey and and benchmark, and then hit images. There are benchmarks around the country. They are monuments that have been established as permanent reference points throughout the United States. They are usually embossed brass markers set into solid concrete or asphalt bases. While used to some degree for surface measurements, their principal reference use is for marking datums. So I don't know if this will be on the exam, but you know, it's in the book. I thought it'd be neat to, I think when Lewis and Clark, when they started heading west, they would put temporary markers for these, and then they would come behind Lewis and Clark and make them permanent brass, you know, blah, blah, blah. But I always thought that was interesting. So over here on page 78, we're at the end of the chapter. Let me see if my whiteboard working now. Now, give me a 30-second break. There's some internet issues. Makes me mad. Maybe by the end of class, I can come back to this chapter and do some things. But on page 78, guys, do not freak out with math. Okay, we've had this conversation. If you're great at math, it ain't going to be the reason you pass. And if you're crappy at math, it ain't going to be the reason you fail. Out of 120 questions, only 7 can involve math. And 3 of those 7 are going to be within your wheelhouse. You know, a couple will be medium hard and a couple will be difficult. But I'm just trying to say there's some measurements we're going to want to know. So I want you to know what a mile is, 5,280 feet, so you can highlight that particular measurement. Come down to square mile, 640 acres. But right there between the word square mile and 640 acres, right section, because that's really what, remember the smaller box was called a section, and it was inside the bigger box called a township? A section is 640 acres. I want you to know that an acre is 43,560. Now, guys, there may be a cubic question on your exam. I'm not real comfortable with cubic. I think it's height, some weight, some depth. I think you take all 3 of your measurements. I'm not completely sure about it. But when I was y'all, when I was a student and we got to this, I conceded those. You know what the word concede means? I said to myself, when I get a cubic question, I'm just eeny, meeny, miny, moing and moving on. I didn't know how to do cubic then. I damn sure wasn't going to learn math just to take a real estate exam. So there's going to be things you can see, you know? So if you're down with cubic and you want to brush up on it, good for you, but you ain't going to get no brush up on the cubic from me. But I'm going to have to revisit this because some of this requires a whiteboard, and I got it. Well, maybe the internet will work itself out by the time we get out. But we are now on our key point review. And I don't want you to do it because I needed to show you some stuff on the whiteboard. So we're going to skip it and go to page 83. Like I said, we could come back to it maybe when the internet works itself out. And guys, I'll tell you this. Some of you might be listening to me going, I'm not terrible at math, Mark. I'm just a little dusty. There's a ton of real estate math videos on YouTube. A ton. Real estate math for the exam. Just put that in the YouTube search bar. There's a ton of knuckleheads like me doing a little power presentation, you know, whatever they call it. You know what I'm talking about. Showing you some math. There's an entire chapter in here, if you're brave, dedicated to math. But if you're not good at math, y'all, don't visit the math chapter. You know, it's like being 16 and your mama taking you to the coroner's office to see people who've been killed in car wrecks before you get your driver's license. It's just not necessary. It'll just scare the hell out of you. Our learning objectives for Unit 6, we're going to talk about the fundamental concepts of title as it relates to the ownership of land. Talk about some processes used in applying these concepts, circumstances and conditions that may provide for an involuntary transfer of title. Then we'll talk about some stuff related to dying, testate, intestate, wills, and the probate process. Turn the page. So our first week together last week, we established the fact that title is not something you can touch and feel in real estate like it is in the car business. You know, we said in the car business, title, you can fold it up, put it in an envelope, send it to somebody. In the real estate business, we use a deed. But a deed is said to convey title at the closing table from the owner to the purchaser. Title is abstract, meaning ownership. It's not something tangible you can see and touch. So let's remind ourselves of that conversation and continue moving on. So voluntary alienation. So we're going to talk in this chapter about how you can be separated from your property. You can be separated voluntarily. You can be separated involuntarily. So voluntary, more often than not, is, you know, sell, gift, will. But I hate, the guy that wrote this book got the ADHD worse than I do. He can't maintain a damn flow. He starts talking about voluntary alienation, and then he stopped, and then we start talking about a deed. So let's do that. Let's talk about a deed academically. And, you know, a lot of these things, I'm country, like some of y'all, and I think of things as a recipe. A recipe got to have a certain number of ingredients. So a deed is a recipe. Let's talk about the ingredients that it has to have to be looked at as legit, you know, by the law. First of all, like in many other areas of life, more often than not, there's two cats in a real estate situation, and one of them's name ends with an OR, one of them's name ends with an EE. It's usually easy to figure out who's who. The OR is given something, the EE is receiving something. The lessor is given permission to possess, the lessee receives permission to possess. The grantor at the closing, and this is where we're at, is giving title. The grantee receives title. Okay, ors and e's. They even give you a little table of some ors and e's down there if you want to hit it, you know, when you're outside of class studying. But up here at the top of page 85, now we're going to go over the recipe for a deed. You see the bulleted ingredients. A lot of the ingredients, very logical. First of all, the grantor has to have legal competency. don't write this down. There'll be a place, oh, well, hell, it's coming up in about 6 inches. Legal competency means two things. Again, don't write it down. Well, you're about to highlight it. But it means A, you're of contractual age, and that's whatever. It's different from state to state. It's usually around 18 or 19, you know. But you got to be contractual age, and you got to be of sound mind, y'all. We've watched enough TV to know a lot of this stuff. Got to be of sound mind, and you got to be grown. You know, it's basically the law saying if you want to do grown folk things, you got to be grown. So the first bullet, logical. The second bullet, the grantee does not have to sign a deed, believe it or not, but you got to be named with reasonable certainty to be identified. If somebody got to go into a property's past and find out who a grantee was, maybe they need to be located. Maybe we need an affidavit for whatever reason, who knows? You must mention, weird. You must mention consideration. Now you're like, what the hell is consideration? Well, we're a little ahead of ourselves. We're going to get to contracts later. And don't write this down, but a contract, there's consideration from both parties. I'm paying you to cut my yards. My consideration to use $100. Your consideration to me is the cutting of the lawn, you know, tit for tat. You scratch my back, I scratch your back. There's got to be each doing something for the other in a contract. And the nerds call it consideration. So you must mention the consideration in the deed. Granting clause. You see, sometimes those are called conveyance language or words of conveyance. In other words, again, these are nerds nerding stuff up unnecessarily. You know, there may be a paragraph on a deed that says all titles and interests held by Mark are being transferred to Julie. That's a damn granting clause. A habendum clause. In the left-hand margin, right in quotation marks, these 5 words that you're familiar with, to have and to hold. You've heard them in marital vows, to have and to hold, in quotation marks. I have had a nugget on the from students recently saying, Mr. Yarbrough, there's a question on the exam that says, what is the habendum clause sometimes referred to as? What do y'all know now? The to have and to hold clause. To have and to hold is a legal phrase used in some different legal contexts. We've heard of marital vows. Now you've heard about it in a deed. I'm sure there's some other weird legal situations where they may use it, but that's a nice little nugget from students. That's an easy question to get right. The habendum clause, sometimes referred to as the to have and to hold clause, because it says it defines the ownership right received by the grantee. Don't write anything down, but in our mind, let's go back in time. Luckily, this is only your second week. So we're just going back to last week. Remember we talked about a life estate? A life estate is a unique ownership situation. It ain't your true vanilla. You know what I mean? It's got its own little twist. So a life estate would be in the habendum clause, would define my grandma's rights as a life estate. It's a unique ownership right. Accurate legal description of the property. You know, honestly, I hate to sound like I'm trying to be a smart know-it-all, but I'm not. The law does not require a legal description. I want to call the content people of this book and tell them that's they're full of crap. You do not have to have a legal description on a deed by law. I have seen in Alex City a deed 30 years ago that said the old Johnson farm. There's no box. But the law says if somebody in that county can find the property based on the description, it suffices. And I can tell you right now, in some small towns, people know where the old Johnson farm is. You know what I mean? So as long as it can be identified by somebody, it suffices. You don't have to have a box number, nothing. But sometimes when you play with others, you have to play by other people's rules, don't you? Like if I want to borrow money, if the lender's going to require that there be a legal description on the deed, there better be a legal description on the deed. If I want title insurance going to require a legal description. So you see what I'm saying? While the law don't require a legal description, you start playing with other people, they require it, so you got to get on board with it. Nevertheless, and any relevant exceptions or reservation. Acknowledgement, that's a nerd word for notarize. And y'all, anything you record at the courthouse got to be notarized. Marriage certificate, death certificate, birth certificate, any contract or lease you may feel the need to record. So let's just get on board with that. Anything recorded at the courthouse got to be notarized. And this is another area that I want to tell you, I think I'm not trying to prove to y'all I'm smarter than the person, but the law does not require a deed be notarized, because the law doesn't require that you record your deed. You could keep your deed in an accordion file folder in your attic. You know what I mean? Keep it in your house. But if you record it, now it has to be notarized. So the only time the law requires it to be notarized is if you're recording it. And then what a lot of people, we'll have to go over these in situations. I'm just rattling them off individually to you. Now we'll come to some certain situations where these individual bullets will come into play. But the last step, title does not officially transfer from the grantor to the grantee until the deed has been delivered. So let me tell you a story based on a nugget I've heard. I take nuggets and I country them up, but I stick to the premise of what the student can remember. So let's say I got a 21-year-old son and I ain't seen him in 2 years. 2 years ago, at 19 years old, he was still living with me at the house. And one night we was playing cards and we was drinking a little bit. Man, he's my boy. But anyway, he thinks I'm cheating. We get in a cuss fight and he goes upstairs and throws some stuff in a satchel and he's the hell out, cussing on the way down the road. And now he's gone for 2 years. Family don't know where he's at. We're all worried. He calls me 2 years later on the phone, Daddy, I'm sorry that I've been gone this long and not told anybody. And hell, I start crying on the phone. That damn boy. He says, I'm coming home, Daddy. I said, you know what, son? You know that piece of property I own that the creek runs through it with a tire swing on that big tree you and your friends used to play at? I'm going to deed that property to you as a welcome home gift. He says, I'll be home in 10 days, Dad. I get off the phone. I'm at the kitchen table crying over a beer, filling out a deed to my boy. And I get up from the kitchen table and I go to bed. And I die of a major heart attack in the middle of the night. Now picture 5:30 in the morning, be there visually. Birds are just now starting to chirp, starting to see a little bit of daylight over the horizon. I'm in the bed cold. Deed on kitchen table filled out to my boy. And the question will say, at this moment, 5:30 in the morning, at this moment, who has title to the property described on the deed? Well, what they're trying to see that is not my boy. Because why? Never was delivered. It's got to be delivered. Now, electronic delivery suffices. You know what I mean? You ain't got to physically put it in their hand, but delivery's got to take place. But the answer to the question is whoever my will says. But they're really trying to see if it's not my boy. That's the main thing they're testing to see that you know. So anticipate that nugget. Delivery is when title officially passes. So now we're about 5-10 minutes approaching our first break. Yes, dear.
What happened later? Like when you could get it, it never would be here.
Never. Yeah. It'd just be unfortunate for the kid, And yes, in a family, there'd be people cursing for years. Paul wasn't done right, and that, anyway.
I have a question.
Yes.
Not to get too obscure, but could the son not walk to his father's cell phone and send a screenshot of the deed to his cell and then have electronically sent?
Yes, what my students are doing is, and I love them. I admire it because you're thinking, but you're what ifing it. You know what I mean? Buy what's in black and white, get on the side and ride with it for a minute. And maybe you'll get a little smarter as we evolve and you might be able to answer your own question. But don't complicate your own attempt to grasp a concept by what if in it and putting wrinkles on it. But I'm the same damn way. Oh my God, I cursed this material and I what ifed it to death. And my instructor said, Mark, you're going to what if yourself to death. He told me that. Quit what ifing it. And I'm a what ifer, damn it. I'm a what ifer by nature. So it's a little tough love. Grantor, we just described. Here's what I want you to do. In the second paragraph, under the term grantor, you see legally competent, but what I want you to do is in the left-hand margin of that second paragraph, write two words, legal capacity. Legal capacity. Because that's what you're going to hear from this point on throughout the remainder of the book. Because it includes two things. Legal capacity includes two things. I'm of legal age and I'm of sound mind. Again, you're not going to have to know what legal age is because it differs from state to state. But legal capacity kills two birds with one stone. The grantee does not have to have legal capacity. That will enable me, a grandfather, to leave my 7-year-old grandchild property, okay? So the grantee don't gotta have legal capacity, the grantor does. Turn to the page. And now we see on page 86, consideration. We just mentioned it a minute ago. We said, you know, each two people in a contract doing something for the other. Tit for tat. I scratch my back, you scratch your back. Now, in the left-hand margin, right? Don't have to mention actual consideration. It's a few words, about 6. I'll explain it after you write it. Don't have to mention actual consideration. Don't have to mention actual consideration. Don't have to. You can keep it anonymous. Don't have to mention actual consideration. Let me explain that to you. Now, guys, we understand the purpose of receipts and title to car, because if this, you know, somebody just comes up to my front door and goes, why you got your car in my car in your driveway? And I'm like, I've been driving that damn car for 2 years. I've never met you. What are you talking about? And now they produce a document with got all my serial numbered on it. And now they take it to me to court. And now there's a claim of who owns my car. And I'm like, I've been driving it for 2 years. I don't know what he's talking about. So as you would imagine, real estate being the most serious product in the world, they don't want this happening. So there's a lot of rules to prevent these arguments or to settle them if they pop up. So I say all of that to say this. The law does not require you to record a deed. You should to fully protect your interests. Because if somebody creates a deed and now they're challenging you, the law will reward the person who recorded their deed first. And if that's you, you're in the good. But if your deed is in an accordion file folder in your attic, you might be in trouble. So while the law can't absolutely require you to record your deed, it can heavily incentivize by telling you what I just told you. If there's ever someone trying to question your ownership, your position is strengthened by the fact you've recorded. Because have you ever heard, what's the saying? Let me try to think of it in my mind. It's basically possession's 9/10 of the law. If I don't see any documentation saying you own it, you know, and maybe that's what the squatters are leaning on. You reading about the squatters nationwide? That's why the law cannot let you turn off utilities in a property where squatters moved in, can't let you change the locks, because the law gives the benefit of a doubt to who is in possession. So I'm trying to lead to a point. Can you imagine a situation in life where you own a property and there's either one person in the world that you don't want to know what you paid for, or you don't want anybody to know what you paid for? A lot of times when you invest in business, if you happen upon something and get it for nothing, I don't want any potential purchaser to know what I got in it, because that's going to affect what they're going to offer me. You see that? So I might want what I paid for to be anonymous. But yet here the state is, the government requiring I'm a valid, look around the consideration, a valid deed must contain a clause acknowledging that the grantor has received some form of consideration. So the law is chewing on this. The law is thinking, okay, we don't require that you record the deed, yet the deed must contain a clause mentioning consideration. We can see where people would not want to record their deed because they'd want to keep that a secret. And we don't want people in precarious situations, because didn't we just talk about it? When you don't record your deed, you're susceptible. So they said, okay, let's kill two birds with one stone. You must mention consideration, but you don't have to mention actual consideration. You can put an arbitrary amount of money. So I may have paid $265,000 for something, but I could put for $10 and other good and valuable consideration. It's just to meet some bogus requirement that I have to mention consideration. But yeah, what am I doing? I'm keeping what I actually pay anonymous. How many times have you ever heard of deeds for $1 and other good and valuable consideration? You know, they paid more than $1. They're just putting an arbitrary amount to meet the law. Like, look, I got some example deeds. I hope y'all are doing the rosemary when y'all are studying outside of class. It improves memory up to 75%. You got to get down with that, okay? Get the rosemary, damn it. Don't wait until the weekend before your final. Yeah, oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. So y'all check it out. Here's a little example of a deed. Know all men by these presents that for the sum of $1,000 and other good and valuable consideration paid to the undersigned grantor by the grantee herein, receipt whereof is acknowledged, Mary Emily Brown, a widow whose address is 180 County, blah, blah, blah. Well, do grant, bargain, and sell and convey in Tabasco LLC, blah, blah, blah. They paid more than $1,000. They just put a round arbitrary amount. Here's one. Know all men by these presents that Dry Creek Holdings LLC. Remember last week we talked about the fact that entities can own real estate? Know all men by these presents that Dry Creek Holdings LLC, hereinafter called the grantor, for and in consideration of the sum of $10 and no change and other good and valuable consideration, they paid more than $10. Now here's one where they actually use the actual amount. Know all men by these presents that the Elizabeth Patrick Trust, remember we talked about a trust being able to own real estate? That the Elizabeth Patrick Trust, hereinafter called the grantor, for and in consideration of the sum of $2,812,000 and other good and valuable consideration to said grantor. So we've got an actual consideration. We've got some not actual considerations. All right, so we're at the bottom of page 86. They contradict themselves in the paragraph. Look at the bottom of page 86 where it says legal description of real estate. Again, you may be 2 inches behind me. To conform to the intent of the grantor, a deed must contain an accurate legal description. And then it contradicts itself. Land is considered adequately described if a professional surveyor can locate the property and accurately mark its boundaries using the description. Well, maybe it didn't, but nevertheless, I'm thinking out loud. Really, I shouldn't be. On page 87, and we're about to take our break. What they did was they took that list of ingredients that was on page 85 and they broke every one of those individual ingredients out on page 86. The consideration, the granting clause, the amendment clause, the legal description, the exception and reservations, the signature of the grantor. So on page 87, where it says signature of the grantor, what they're doing is telling you the signature of the grantor is required on a deed. So in the left-hand margin, you can put no signature from grantee required. Or just put grantee signature not required. Grantee signature not required. And then down there, somewhere around the word acknowledgement, write the word notary. Nerds acknowledgement, me and you notary. And then page 88, delivery and acceptance. You can highlight the first sentence. A title is not considered transferred until the deed to the property is actually delivered to and accepted by the grantee. Last thing before we take our break, where it says execution of corporate deeds, I don't know if this is important for the exam, but have you ever heard of white collar crime? I may be an officer of a corporation and not be authorized to buy and sell corporate assets, but yet I'm doing it. And the other officers aren't aware, and I'm putting money in my pocket. So anytime you are dealing with an entity, when you're buying and selling real estate, you want to see the charter to see where they were given the authority to obligate the corporation. Or if they're not given that authority in the charter, you want to see the minutes of the meeting where they were granted that authority. One or the other. I don't know if that's important on the exam or not, but they mention corporate deeds. So we're going to come back from break and talk about types of deeds. Let me see if I can, let me use the app. Take a good solid 15-minute. See y'all back here in a minute, okay?
So I brought these for everybody.
Give me 1 minute. You know, one of my students just handed out little Easter related presents to everybody. God bless her. But I tell you, it reminds me of a story. It was a small town in Oklahoma in the 50s. And they'd gone a couple of months without rain. And this is a part of the country where they grow stuff, that we eat as a country. So the town was withering away, literally. This was a town, a farmer's town, farmers depended on, I mean, that's what the farmers depended on. The town's mayor had checked with the government on the prospects of seeding the clouds. Have y'all ever heard of that concept? You can seed the clouds. It was just too far out of their range. They couldn't save enough money. They finally had some cakewalks and some bake sales, and they got up enough money, and they seeded the clouds, paid the people with the airplanes, but it didn't work, didn't rain. So the town is just dying a slow death, almost literally and figuratively. And finally, the preacher put the word out, and he said, "Y'all, we're gonna pray all day Sunday, all day long at the church." So everybody showed up at the church. A little 9-year-old girl walks in carrying an umbrella because she went there with a purpose. She was expecting something to happen based on the effort that she was about to put in. This little girl's already in AAA baseball, man. She's heading to the major leagues.
Oh, yeah.
She knows what she's trying to do, where she's going. No question in her mind. Top of page 88, we talked about delivery and acceptance, execution of corporate deeds. And now we're at the bottom of page 88, and we're going to talk about different types of deeds. And you see down there below there, general warranty deed, they start naming the deeds. You want to consider a deed two things. A, it's a reflection of who owns the property. Wouldn't you think? You can think of a deed as a platter. Whatever interest I have to this property, I'm putting it on the platter and I'm delivering it to you. A means of transferring rights from one to another. I don't know why I got the hiccups. But, we see the word warranty, right? General warranty deed, special warranty deed on the next page. And you may be thinking, warranty, huh? You mean a deed is not only used for the purpose of conveying interest from the owner to the new person? You mean a deed is meant to be something other than that, Mr. Yarbrough? Yeah, it can offer warranty. Now, as you're now pondering that, you may be thinking, warranty on what, Mr. Yarbrough? The structure? Warranty on the personal property items that are part of the property? No, Warranty on the condition of the title. A lot of you are old enough, regardless of how young you are, to know that in car world, you got to have clean title. Guys, there's so many comparisons from real estate to the car world. Y'all heard me tell you that last week. So yeah, you got to have clean title in the real estate business. What can have screwed up a title in the real estate business? Well, write them down in the left-hand margin. You got some white space. Warranty from, that's what you want to write. Warranty from, and put a colon, and we're going to put 3 bullets. You want protection from 3 things. Warranty from, colon, first bullet, liens from previous owners. Liens. I'm going to give you examples of all these. Liens from previous owners. Second bullet, fraud, comma, forgery. Fraud, comma, forgery. The third thing is missing heirs. Now, normally I'm good about telling y'all what to highlight. You're not going to see anything that I'm telling you right now on these 2 pages, but we'll refer to it throughout. Missing heirs. What does missing heirs mean, Mr. Yarbrough? Well, first of all, let's go through the list in the order. The first bullet says liens from previous owner. So let's say you just bought your property and it's Saturday and you kick back watching college football, you know, got your favorite Cheetos, got your beer, and you get a hard knock on the door. You look through the window and it's a postman. So you go open the door and you sign for a certified return receipt letter from Broccoli Mortgage. You look at it and you think, I ain't never heard of Broccoli Mortgage. You open that letter up, take it. Broccoli Mortgage said, Mr. Yarbrough, it's in your best interest to call us as soon as you get this. You owe us $49,000. And you think, man, these people must be barking up the wrong tree. I must have a similar social security number, a name, address as somebody they hunting for. So I call them on the number. I got the game paused. And I call them on the number. I say, listen, the only reason I'm calling y'all is because I'm a nice guy. I'm trying to help you save some time because you barking up the wrong tree. You might be looking for somebody with a name similar to me, address similar, whatever. And they start rattling off, is this your social security? Is this your driver's license number? I'm like, damn, yeah, that's all me. And they're like, no, we got the right person, Mr. Yo. So now it's at this point where the naive homeowner finds out that when you buy a home, if a lien from a previous owner rears its ugly head during your ownership, you're responsible for it. You even call them on the phone. You say, listen, I ain't never heard of Broccoli Mortgage, and I ain't borrowed them any money in a month of Sundays. And they go, yeah, the previous owner, Mr. Yarbrough, Mr. Drysdale, in 1999, he got him a second mortgage on this property, and he made one payment, and we never heard hide nor hair from him after that one payment. And you're like, I'll be damned if you didn't just name the man. You know who's responsible for the debt, yet you still bugging me. And again, the previous owner is irrelevant at this point. The current person who's in the property is responsible for any liens from a property's past. So that's definitely something you'd want protection from, wouldn't you? I dang sure want protection. The next one, fraud and forgery. You know, I know a legitimate story about a man and a woman. They had been separated for 30 years, never legally divorced for whatever reason. Early in their marriage, they got separated. She moved back to Iowa, or as my family says, Iowa. She moved back to Iowa, and he stayed in Alabama. He remained in the house they bought as bride and groom. They never legally got divorced. So 30 years, and they never talked for 30 years. Who knew what went on in their breakup? Here it is 30 years later, he needed to sell the house. He needs the money. He ain't talked to her, but whose signature is going to be required on the paperwork? Hers. So he gets his sister, who's about her age, to pretend to be his old lady. And she signs all the paperwork, listing agreement. She signs the offer. She shows up at the closing, signs the deed. And the new owners take possession. And you can live there as long as you want until somebody finds out. Y'all, I speed every damn day of my life. I only get a ticket about once every 2 years. So it's gonna take somebody to find out, somebody up in Iowa at a family reunion go, wonder what happened to Aunt Jolene's house in Birmingham, Alabama. She's married that sorry man from Birmingham, and then they separate. I wonder what happened. And next thing you know, you're in that house and you get a certified letter. And now you're about to lose the house because because of fraud and forgery. It's exposed in a court of law. They pull that property out from under you like a rug. But I paid money for it, Mr. Yarbrough. I've wasted a lot of damn money in my lifetime, and that's a lot of money you just wasted too. You don't get no refund. You're just out on the streets. The third one, missing heirs. Remember what the right of escheat was? Y'all remember? I don't expect y'all to remember everything. If I die with no will and leaving no heirs, the state gets my property. What do you think the state's going to do with your property? Sell it. And let's say a man buys it, lives in it for 5 years, then sells it to you. Now you've been in it for 3 years and you get a certified letter one day. A missing heir from 8 years ago from the hills of Minnesota has now come down wanting to know where their Uncle Roy's house is, because I know I was his only living heir. They will pull that property out from under you like a rug. And you get nothing, no equity, you just a sad face. So yeah, 3 things I definitely want some protection from. I think y'all see that clearly now. So y'all know how I like to compare stuff to cars, so let's do that. And I also like to teach with totem poles. So let's talk about at the top of totem pole in car world, the best warranty you can get is the bumper to bumper. And if you've been around the block a minute or two, you know that. It's typically the warranty you get on a brand new car. And bumper to bumper is literal. They'll fix not only engine-related issues, but they'll fix a bent antenna. Maybe your computer's all screwed up. Maybe you got some torn upholstery that they didn't know when they sold it to you. They'll fix it all, bumper to bumper. So we come over to in the car world, real estate world, top of the totem pole is the general warranty deed. They're listing them in the order that they are good. The best is the general warranty, and then you come over here on page 89, next is this. So they're listing in the order of the best to the worst. So the general warranty deed is the equivalent of the bumper to bumper. The best you can get in real estate. And that would be if I'm at a closing and I'm a buyer, so the seller is pushing across the table a general warranty deed. By doing so, he's telling me, hey, Mr. Yarbrough, as long after today, as far into the future as you continue to own the property, if someone steps forward from this property's past, going all the way back to Adam and Eve, and they claim to have an interest in the property, how would they have an interest? By fraud, forgery, missing heirs, or liens. Okay, that's the 3 things. That's what we know. If anybody from this property's past, Mr. Yarbrough, steps forward into the future, claiming to acquire an interest in one of those 3 ways, you call me up. I'll make you whole. Is that not what a warranty is? A promise to fix the situation. Yeah. And hey, before we move on, that's a pretty strong damn warranty, isn't it? All the way back to Adam and Eve. That's pretty strong. Far into the future as you continue to own it, very strong warranty. Now, I kind of lied to you and not on purpose. Remember when I said bumper to bumper fix everything? If you got a bumper to bumper warranty on your car right now, get the paperwork out. There's some exclusions. There's some stuff they ain't gonna cover. You know what I mean? So even though the general warranty is the highest, there's only 5 bullets at the top of page 89. You'll discover, y'all, that legalese does not use the word promise. They either use the word covenant or bond. So there are 5 specific promises in the general warranty. I don't know that it's important that you memorize them, but I can tell you, I think you'll have a question where knowing one of those covenants is going to help you get a question right. Covenant of season is just me telling the owner, the person that I'm selling the property to, that I do in fact own it. It's not me and my sister's signature is required. It's not me pretending to be the owner when really somebody else is. I'm doing what I'm legitimately allowed to do. That's basically the covenant of season. Covenant against encumbrances. We know what an encumbrance is. So if anything negative rears its ugly head, I gotta address it as the person that gave you the general warranty deed. Covenant of further assurances. Basically, the covenants are making me do what I'm saying I'm gonna do. I'm gonna honor the warranty. Grantor promises to obtain and deliver any instrument that might be needed to make the title good. Covenant of quiet enjoyment. The grantor guarantees that the grantor's title will be good against any third party. And then the covenant of warranty forever. We talked about that. As long as I continue to own the property, the warranty doesn't expire after 5 years like some warranties do. So they may, more often than not, covenant of season's the right answer. But yeah, there may be one question where you getting it right. It's going to hinge on you knowing them covenants. So moving down the page, okay, at the top of the totem pole in car world, we started out with the bumper to bumper. We said that's the best you can get in car world. And then we come one notch down and we come to what they call the powertrain warranty. They're very limited compared to the bumper to bumper. Powertrain, it only fixes block related issues. It ain't gonna fix your bent antenna, your jacked up computer, some frayed carpet. It's not gonna do anything, just the engine block. So we come over in real estate, we had the general warranty at the top, like the bumper to bumper. So now let's come down to a limited version called the special warranty deed. Highlight the first sentence in the paragraph below the 2 bullets, and then I will explain what you just highlighted. The first sentence below the 2 bullets, we're on special warranty deed. So let's say I'm at a closing, just like on the general warranty deed, same scenario. I'm at a closing, and the gal that's selling me the property, she's pushing across the table a special warranty deed. And by doing so, she's telling me, hey, Mr. Yarbrough, after we close today, as far into the future as you continue to own the property, if someone in this property's passed, at least during the 8 years that I owned it, acquired an interest in one of them 3 ways, liens, fraud and forgery, missing is. If they acquired an interest during my ownership interest, then I will make you whole. But if somebody steps forward in the future claiming to have acquired an interest in this property and they acquired their interest prior to me coming into this property's picture, I'm not extending warranty. Kind of makes sense, don't it? So let's read what you highlighted. Grantor promises to defend the title as provided in the covenants, but only against the grantor's actions and not those of earlier owners. So basically, when I convey to you a special warranty deed, I'm saying if the fraud and the forgery and the missing heirs and the lien came about during the time I own the property, then I'll make you whole. But if it took place in 1972, before I was born, I'm not extending you warranty. So it is a fantastic warranty, but limited to things that happen during the grantor's ownership. Again, guys, some of this may be new to you, some of it may not. Some of you may have had some experiences in real estate and you're like, okay, I kind of remember that, or I don't remember it, but I can get the logic. I see that. Some of you are struggling. If you can just get a tenuous purchase on the information, a slight grasp, that's good enough. Be comfortable with it and just keep going. You're never going to have a full bright light bulb. Oh, hell yeah. Makes perfect sense. That day will never come. Never, ever, 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 ever. And I think students, they feel bad. They lose confidence in themselves because they're waiting on that epiphany, you know, where everything just, it makes sense, you know? No, that day's never going to come. Okay, now car world. We start out with a bumper to bumper. And then we come down to the powertrain. And now let's come down to as is. We all understand that. Sometimes in life, beggars can't be choosers. If I'm wanting to buy a used car off a used car lot and they don't offer any warranty whatsoever, I buy the car as is. And then, you know, within a week or two, everything's falling off the car. All I can do is be upset with myself and be upset with life. But I can't go be upset with them because I bought it as is. And I understand what that means. I'm up a creek without a paddle. No big deal. That's life sometimes. Throws you a curveball right in the middle of your face. Well, real estate's got its version of as is. So we started out with the general warranty. Then we come down with the special warranty. And now we got 2 deeds that are as is. Let's turn the page. The quit claim, okay, that's probably the one you have heard of, you're familiar with. And a lot of time you hear country folk call it a quick claim. It's a quit claim, not a quick claim. A lot of country people like to add K's, you know. You don't hear as many people calling it Walmart anymore, but there used to be some folks calling it Walmart. Or, I got bad credit. You're starting to hear things like that a little less, a lot of old school soldiers, that paved the way for me and you. Quit claim is one of the two. And, well, hell, we just turned the page. Bargain and sell is an as is. Bargain and sell is at the bottom of page 89. So if you'll do me a favor, turn back to where it says bargain and sell deed. And to the right, I want you to write some things. Bargain and sell deed, you see it there? To the right, in quotation marks, you're going to write, I own, that's 2 words, O-W-N. I own, ... but will not defend. I'm going to explain afterwards so it'll make sense. I own, ... but will not defend. And then turning the page, beside quit claim, in quotation marks, I may or may not own, ... but will not defend. I may or may not own, ... but will not defend. There is a chance they want you to know the difference between a bargain and sell and a quit claim. So when I convey to you a bargain and sell deed, I'm telling you, I own the joint, but I'm offering you no warranty. That's what will not defend means. No warranty, as is. But I own it. Whereas a quit claim, I may not own the property. I had a problem understanding this when I was y'all. Let me bring you back to an example I used last week. Y'all remember me telling y'all a story? My paw putting a deed condition on a property in 1958 that this property used for residential purposes only, But then my paw sold the property in 1958. That's when he put the deed condition on it. My family has not had an ownership interest in that property since 1958. But all of the heirs of my paw have an interest in that property by virtue of the fact that he put a deed condition on it. It's not an interest that we can make money on. It's not an interest that we get tax advantages on. It's an interest in only that it affects people. For that man to be able to put a service station on property that my paw put a deed condition on, that this be used for residential purposes, he's going to have to get a quit claim deed from the heirs of that owner if they're no longer alive. Do you see where when they get a quit claim deed from me, that I do not own that property? You see what I'm saying? So that's why a quit claim I may or may not own. Check this out, because some of y'all may know where I'm coming from on this. Husband, wife buy property, right? Whose name's on the deed? Husband and wife. A divorce happens. Wife gets the property. Whose name's also on the deed, though? Husband. So 4 years later, wifey, ex-wifey, wants to refinance. Well, whose signature is going to be needed on all the papers? Husband. But she don't want the husband. We done split, right? So in a lot of these instances, you got to find the ex and get a quit claim deed from them, thus removing their name from the deed. So that's an instance where the ex-spouse, they don't have no ownership interest in the house, right? But their name's on the deed and it's jacking up the current owner. So to get the name off the deed, even though you're not an owner, I need a quitclaim deed. So sometimes quitclaim deeds are for situations where the person giving me the quitclaim has no ownership interest in the property. So that's why the difference is, one, the bargain of sale is I own, but I'm not going to defend. Quitclaim, I may or may not own, but I'm not going to defend. So I've beat that over the head a few times. Hopefully you've got that now. At the bottom of the page, deed of trust, and then over here on 91, reconveyance, trustee's deed executed to a protect. I'm not going to talk about all four of those because they're, I'll talk about them when they're in the appropriate chapter. Those are all mortgage instruments. They're not instruments used in conveying interest from seller to buyer. So again, we're going to talk about all four of those things. And I think it's chapter 14, but anyway, transfer tax stamps though. I personally had never seen some, but I had a student whose mama worked at a courthouse. And he brought me a lot of legit old stuff that I could use in class. Pretty cool of him. But you know, we ain't always had technology. Record keeping has not always been as fancy and accurate as it is now. So I think in some country towns, they still do this. I don't know, I can't confirm it, but I do know in the past it was done everywhere. There's such a thing as called a transfer tax, typically paid by the owner at the closing, okay? And to indicate that the transfer tax had been paid on the previous transfer, you would lick stamps, put them on the deed. Let me see if we've got some in here, just a long file mark. Long file mark. This one. This one. Uh-huh. Can you see it? See the stamp? Yep. It always reminded me of, and some of y'all are probably not old enough to remember green stamps, S&H green stamps. You get them at the grocery store. Grocery store had an S&H green stamp thing, and you know, you'd get so many green stamps for every dollar you spent on your grocery stores. And then you would take the green stamps and put them in a booklet, and you get so many booklet. If you know what Marlboro miles are, you smokers, you save up your Marlboro carton, things, and you can trade them in for canoes. And y'all are looking at me like, just act like you're awake. You know, teachers rely on faces before they move on. Do y'all know that? I don't know if any of y'all ever teach, because when you see, that lets me know, okay, I can move on. But when I get, feel like I gotta give 8 examples, you know, because I don't see the receiving part. Nevertheless, some of y'all might not have gotten corporal punishment from y'all's parents, but kids were legally required to have their ass whipped when I was a kid. And my mama had about 8 shoe boxes full of green stamp booklets. She was saving up for a vacuum cleaner. And I took a lot of green stamps. Well, I lived in a subdivision, but you know, there was woods behind us. So me and my friend, I was about 10 years old. I didn't know what them 5 boxes were. So we took them out, made a campfire. That was the worst ass whipping I ever got in my life. And I got some bad ones. It was my mother's hobby, whipping my ass. If she was just bored and the TV was broke, I got my ass whipped for days. Just got of boredom. And then I got an ass whipping on the anniversary of the S&H green stamp debacle for about 4 years. Nevertheless, y'all, sometimes this position of teaching is therapeutical. Turn to the page 92. I told you, you're not gonna have more than 7 math questions. And guys, you want a transfer tax math question. I can assure you, look up at the top, you see math concepts, calculating transfer taxes. Take a 30 seconds and read that to yourself. I hope you see where that would probably be a math question you might be able to handle. Compared to some of the other potential math questions, that would be one that would be preferable. Involuntary alienation is where we find ourselves at the bottom of the page. And in case I need to explain that to you, sometimes property can be taken from you against your will. So over here on page 93, look at the bottom of the top of the page. You'll see 2 words, intestate or testate. Testate derives from the word testament. Okay. I think y'all know that's an interchangeable word for will. You know, a lot of times they'll say last will and testament. So to die with a will means you died testate. To die without a will means you died intestate. The word testate literally comes from the Roman Empire. When a male citizen was caught lying in a court of law, they cut off his testes. I think I read that on the back of Captain Crunch one morning. No, but I didn't make that up. That's where the word testament came from, because that's what you give as a witness on the stand. That's what you give, testament. But we want to know. So if I died intestate, meaning without a will, the government has a generic will that will kick in if you die without a will. So if you have no problem with your immediate family, don't feel the need to draw up a will. Because they've already, based on every combination of how you could die leaving parents, spouse, children, they've predetermined how much he's going to get. Eat some of your stuff. Maybe you die without parents, just spouse and children. Maybe you die without parents and spouse, just children. Maybe no children, just spouse and parents. Maybe just children, no spouse, and every conceivable way you could die, they predetermine who's going to get what. So if you got no problem with your immediate family, don't feel the need to go draw up a will. Adverse possession, we talked about it, didn't we? Remember, it's not Onka, it's Nacho. And guys, I want you to memorize that, because I'm giving you permission right now to miss the hard as hell questions. I think it's a student's role to miss very hard questions, but we got to get the gimmies. We got to get the gimmies. And they can have a question as far as that formula. Which of the following is not required to obtain title by adverse possession? And they'll have 3 of those 5 and 1 that don't belong. That would be an easy question. So memorize the Nacho. Notorious, adverse, hostile, continuous and open. You do not need to know the period of time. I told you 20 years for Alabama, but that was something irrelevant. You don't need to know. You just need to know conceptually. Every state's got to be a period of time, and it's got to be uninterrupted. Over here on page 94, second half of the page, conveyance of a decedent's property. I don't know why, they mentioned that the testate and intestate. And then italicized in that paragraph, you see the statute of descent and distribution. Y'all, a statute is a synonymous term for law. So the laws of descent and distribution, that's the pre-drawn up will that I told you the government will defer to if you die without a will. Descent referring to your descendants. Distribution, you know, who gets what? I'm gonna give the daughter this, the son this. And at the bottom of the page, you see probate. We've talked about that. Whenever you die, your estate got to go through probate. Why? The government wants to make sure there's no fraud between all the greedy family members. And they also want to make sure they get what's theirs, because very often there's going to be some tax consequences on death from real estate. So page 95. In the second paragraph, highlight the word device. And then below that, you see italicized the word devisee. Here's what the word means. Do not write this down, but it helps me explain. I bet a lot of you have heard of the word bequeath. Don't write this down because you don't need to know it, but you bequeath personal property. So if I'm the decedent and I'm drawing up my will, I would bequeath into my son my 1973 souped up Camaro. I would bequeath into my other son $50,000 cash. But I would devise real estate. You bequeath personal property, you devise real estate. I don't know where these words come from. Bequeath, for crying out loud, and devise. But you know, that's what my old man told me. He said, grit your teeth, boy, and grind and just play by somebody else's rules for a minute or two so you can get to where you're trying to get to. So I like watching TV and movies and hear them make the mistake, you know. I saw a movie the other night and they was talking about, he bequeathed that real estate to his. I was like, it ain't bequeathed. Talking to the TV, you know. I know a little bit of things. You'll be like the saying, you have to poke your friend. It ain't bequeathed, it's devised. But here's the point. I think I told you all this last week. There will be some long scenario type questions, you know, where they're painting out a story, you know. And nowhere will it mention in the scenario somebody dying. But the question may start out saying Robert and Dino, comma, a devisee, comma. The minute you read the word devisee, you go, he received something from somebody in death. And that may be the context of the question. And if you don't know what the word device is or devisee, you don't understand the context. There'll be questions like that where you not knowing one word depends on whether you understand the context of it. So when I point out a word like that, I'm not just doing it for the fun of it. Legal requirements for making a will, simple, legal capacity. The law says in a few ways, if you want to do grown folk things, you merely got to be grown folk. Contractual age and sound mind. This applies to wills, deeds, and contracts. Got to have legal capacity. Those are all adult things. Wills, deeds, contracts. Legal capacity is the same for all three of them. So down toward the bottom of page 95, again, you may be 2 inches behind me. But if you're with me, the last 2 paragraphs on the page, how about this? The 3rd and 4th paragraphs under the bold title, Legal Requirements for Making a Will. You will see in those paragraphs non-cupative. You will see holographic. These are italicized words. Holographic, non-cupative. And then the last paragraph, you'll see italicized the word codicil. These are going to be offered as wrong answer choices. They're not going to be the right answers to questions. A holographic, as you see there, is a handwritten will. Sometimes I think they used to call a holographic will a deathbed will. No. A non-cupative will was called a deathbed will, oral will. You know, you're dying and you're like, give all this crap to my boy before I die. Non-cupative will, oral will, holographic, handwritten will. Codicil is an amended will. You know, you get mad at somebody or somebody you plan on leaving something to dies themselves, you got to change your will. So an amended will is a codicil. All right, over here, page 96. First of all, the illustration, the figure 6.5, just glance at it. That is an example of the statute of descent and distribution. That's not necessarily what Alabama's is. They're just trying to show you what an example is. So below the illustration, probate, we've already talked about it. It's a formal judicial process. I like that entire paragraph. So I want you to know that probate takes place in the county in which the decedent last resided, and then let's keep going. Probate is going to take place in every county you own real estate. So imagine being wealthy and owning property all over the country. And you, oh my God, probate can take forever. You'd have to have a probate in the county you died in, and then you're going to have a probate in every county you own real estate in. So yeah, very convoluted, time taken up process. Uh, we are at our 15 minutes, so let's do them. Yeah, let's do our 15 minutes, and then right after we'll take our break. So let me pull up the app. Don't forget to flip back. You may begin. 15 minutes is up. All right, so let's do chapter 7. So we have, get off the board. Unit 7, page 103, title records, learning objectives. We're going to explain the public recordation system. And it's important to the title insurer. We're going to talk about the benefits of title insurance and the difference between an owner and a lender policy. So let's turn the page. So yeah, public records, you've heard of them. Courthouse. There's records there that's meant to be accessible to me and you. So we can go to the courthouse and find out some things if we need to make ourselves feel get better about things. If I'm buying a car, if I'm buying a house, if I'm buying, I can find out who the owner of record is, if there are any liens on the property, blah, blah, blah. So the second half of the page, you see notice, anyone with an interest in a parcel of real estate can take certain steps called giving notice to ensure that the existence of the interest is made available to the public. And you see there's two kinds of notice, constructive notice and actual notice. Constructive notice is what you're going to need to know to get a question right. The law, when I become an owner of property, the law wants me to tell the world. And I have two ways I can tell the world that I own a property. Record the deed, that way it's accessible, public records, anybody can, Mark Yarbrough owns that, okay? So I can record it. That's one way to tell the world. Or I can take possession. Pretty clear way to tell the world. And the government doesn't put more weight on either of those. Those are 50-50. Point being, guys, there's a lot of crooks that will literally create paperwork, create the illusion that they own a property. They'll sell it for cash to 5 people and then get the hell out of town. Let y'all fight it up. If 1 of 5 people, well, I don't want to keep using that example, but if there's multiple people claiming to own a piece of property and all 3 of them have recorded a deed, who do you think the government's going to reward? The first one that recorded. Now, what if 3 people are claiming to own the property? 1 took possession on Thursday, 1 recorded the deed on Wednesday, and 1 recorded the deed on Tuesday. Who are they going to reward the property to? The person who recorded it on Tuesday. What if I took possession on Tuesday and you recorded on Wednesday? Who are they going to reward it to? The person who took possession on Tuesday. They don't give weight to recording over taking possession. They're equal in the eyes of the law. Whoever did either first in such a situation, unfortunately, is going to get the property. So constructive notice is the legal presumption that the information has been obtained by an individual through due diligence. The doc is placed in public record, serves as notice to the world of an individual's right or interest. So recording, bottom of the page, is the act of placing documents in the public record. Over here on page 105, priority. Think of priority as calling dibs. For instance, liens don't have to be recorded. Like I said, nothing has to be recorded. It's just sometimes there are certain instances where it has to be recorded, but not initially. So a lien holder should record their lien. If you borrow money from me to buy a car, I need, as the lender, to go record the lien quickly. Here's what happens. When somebody bankrupts, they belly up financially. The courts retrieve their assets and they have a fire sale, so to speak. And as a result of the sale of your assets, they have, and I'm being very figurative, they have a pot of cash. So they call all the creditors that suffered from your financial ruin, and they say to all of them, hey, y'all, I got a bucket of cash. You want some of it? Yeah, we want some of it. Well, you better hurry on down. It ain't a first come, first serve. Okay. There's a chronological order of lien holders, and they're in the order that they recorded their lien. You see what I mean? There's somebody first in line, second in line, third in line, fourth in line. Usually by the time the first two lien holders get what's theirs, there ain't nothing in the bucket left. So do you see where it's in your best interest? If you ever become a lien holder, it's your best interest to go record that lien, establish your place in chronological line, if you will, to establish your priority. Unrecorded documents, it says certain types of liens are not recorded, like real estate taxes, special assessments, or liens on specific parcels, and are not usually recorded until after the end of the period for which the taxes are due. But what they're trying to say is just because it's not recorded doesn't necessarily mean it's not a valid debt. Turn to the page. Guys, if I breeze through something, I'm just trying to let you know what it means. I'll tell you to highlight or write when we need to. So chain of title, here's where we talk about this. Let's go back to the previous hour. And let's suggest to you in the story that I bought a property from a woman and she gave me a general warranty deed. Remember, that's at the top of the totem pole, by God. So 5 years later, after buying the property from the woman, her giving me a general warranty deed, again, I'm on the couch watching college football. I get a knock on the door from Broccoli Mortgage. Y'all remember that story, right? And so now that I'm reading the letter, Mr. Yarbrough, you owe us $49,000. I call the woman. You remember I bought the property from you about 5 years ago? She says, I remember. I said, you remember you gave me a general warranty deed? And she goes, I just gave you whatever the hell the people that we were dealing with told me to give you. I just signed stuff when they said sign. I don't know what you're talking about. Well, you gave me a general warranty deed. And I just got a letter from Broccoli Mortgage. So, ma'am, you owe Broccoli Mortgage $49,000. You can give it to me and I'll give it to him, but you owe me $49,000 by virtue of the warranty deed, right? She goes, you know, Mr. Yarbrough, that'd be great if I had it. I said, well, what do you got? She goes, a meth habit with scabs all over my face. My point is just because something says in paper, don't mean it's going to happen in real life. You know, I could sue anybody. I could sue a homeless person for $1 million and win a judgment of $1 million in a court of law. Am I ever going to collect anything? No. So just because I got a warranty, you know, don't mean I'm going to collect. No, the damn woman that gave me the warranty deed got a meth habit. So that's why, luckily, perhaps you have title insurance. Because that's where you're realistically going to recover. It'd be like in real life. Why do we got automobile insurance? If you T-bone me at an intersection, why can't we handle it like grown people? Why we got to bring insurance and all that kind of into it? Well, because, you know, real life don't work out like we wished it would, right? A, you might agree that it was your fault when you T-boned me, but you ain't got the ability to pay me. Or B, you're argumentative as far as whose fault it was at the intersection. So we can't rely on people acting like mature adults and handling that. We got to have insurance. So let's say in this deal, I got title insurance. Do you know more often than not why a person has title insurance? Beggars can't be choosers. If you want to borrow, you know how when you buy a car, if you want to borrow the money, what do they require you to have? Insurance. If I want to borrow money to buy real estate, I got to have two insurances. Homeowner's insurance for the tangible defects and title insurance for the intangible defects. So I got to have two insurances in real estate. But just like cars, if you borrow money, they want you to have insurance. Why? To protect their damn asset. Because it ain't yours until you pay it off. You know what I mean? My friend called me the other day. Did you see on Facebook a picture of my new car? I said, you know damn well it ain't your car, Randy. It's the bank's car until you pay it off. That's why they require you to have insurance. They want you to fix their car if it gets messed up. So if I've got title insurance will come to my rescue, pay the bad people, make them go away. But if I don't got title insurance, you know, just like in other just like in other areas of life, when we don't have insurance, when it's available, we know we're taking a risk, don't we? My father told me as a young businessman, he said, son, if I could pour kerosene on every insurance company and set them on fire in the middle of the night and get away with it, I would. I'm not a fan of insurance. But he said, you need to have insurance for every walk of life, especially in your business, because no matter how skilled you are, son, you can't overcome calamity. You know what I'm saying? A big hit. So check it out. Not everybody has to borrow money to buy real estate, do they? Just like not everybody's got to borrow money to buy a car. If you walk in with a briefcase full of cash, you buy a car, all of a sudden, car insurance or full coverage is optional. And we know when we roll the dice and don't get insurance, we know we're taking a risk, right? So let's say I'm paying, now let's say I'm borrowing money to buy real estate. So the lender is going to require that I got the homeowners and the title insurance. Let's go back to the car. If the lender is going to require that I have automobile insurance because I'm borrowing money, is it a given? Is it a guarantee that I'm going to be able to get car insurance? No, it ain't, is it? Because I could have DUIs, I could have all kinds of stuff on my record. So it's not a given that you can get title insurance. So when I go make application for the mortgage at the mortgage lender is going to call up a title insurance company and say, we need a policy on this purchase that we're funding. So the title insurance company will hire a person. They're either a hired gun or they're employed by the title insurance company, but they'll appoint an abstractor. Look at the bottom of page 106. Hopefully you're at the same book as me. If not, you may be a couple inches behind. But there's an italicized word called abstractor in the third paragraph under title search and abstract of title. Find bold print, title search and abstract of title, third paragraph, highlight abstract of title in bold print, and then in italicized, highlight the word abstractor. So if I'm the abstractor, I'm going to go into the courthouse records. Now, if some of y'all have some experience, you know the truth, but we don't play by the truth. We play by theory, academic theory. I'm going to go as far back into this property's recorded history and begin to put together a chain of title, okay? So let's say this recorded history goes back to 1903, and Miss Abernathy was the purchaser, so she's the grantee. 1908, just 5 years later, she's the grantor, and Mr. Peabody's the grantee. 20 years later, in 1928, Mr. Peabody's the grantor, and Mr. Davis is the grantee. 8 years later, Mr. Davis is the grantor. You see where I'm going with this? Okay. So if I'm the abstractor and I'm up in the records and I'm putting together this chain of title, if there's a missing link, if I can't see in recorded history who owned the joint from 1993 to 1996, we're not issuing a policy. Because our luck, right, it's going to be somebody from that 3 years that steps forward and makes a claim. And let me tell you something about insurance companies. You know what the worst thing they hate to do? Pay damn claims. Man, my God, they look for every nook and cranny, every fine print, every reason they don't have to pay a claim. They hate to pay claims. So by God, that missing link, whole process comes to a halt. Now, don't get me wrong. They'll investigate and they'll try to find somebody, you know, maybe get them to sign an affidavit or the heir of somebody that was from that time, whatever. But it does halt the process until they can find it. And a lot of times, if they can't find that missing link, they ain't gonna lend you the money. And it would be at that point, you've got to pay cash if you want the property, because the lender's gonna require title insurance. But here we go. The result of their efforts is an abstract of title. You highlighted both in the same paragraph. A full abstract of title is a summary report of what the title search found in the public records. Person preparing the report as the abstractor. But you also see the abstractor searches all public records, summarizes, blah, 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 blah. It says at the end of the paragraph, all recorded liens and encumbrances are also included, along with their current status, paid, or still owed, etc. And you know what can also hold something up? Let's say Mary Brown bought the property in 1990. In other words, she's the grantee in 1990. In 1998, Mary Smith is the grantor. Now, me and you could be looking through the records and we could say, you know, that might be Mary Brown. She might have got married or divorced, you know, went back to her maiden name or changed her to a married name. But the title insurance company ain't got the ability to take that risk. They're going to have to find that married woman or her heirs and get an affidavit because they can't trust that. What Mary could have done to prevent is put, when she becomes the grantor 8 years later, put Mary Smith, formerly Mary Brown. So that the abstractor sees that, there's no interruption. They keep trucking, you know. So title search, abstract of title. So over here on page 107, when property is said to have marketable title, it passes on the smell test. You know, was able to put title insurance on it. Why? Because there were no liens from previous owners, couldn't find evidence of any fraud or forgery. It's clean. That's what a seller is supposed to convey at a closing table. Marketable title that is free of any encumbrances, or at least those that I haven't pre-disclosed to you. Again, guys, we take small bites. All these bites mean something individually, but it's a collection of bites sometimes that makes up a whole concept. So how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So down at the bottom of page 107, again, I don't know where you are. I'm under proof of ownership. Proof of ownership. Highlight the second sentence. Anticipate a question on the exam that says, does this provide sufficient evidence of ownership? Now, in this one, they said deed. Or they'll say, does this guarantee ownership? Does this guarantee? There are no guarantees in life, period. That's why we have insurance. That's why we have warranties. But a deed by itself is not considered sufficient evidence of ownership. If I looked at a deed and said, okay, the grantor 8 years ago was Mr. Abernathy, the grantee. Did I say trustor? The grantor 8 years ago was Mr. Abernathy. The grantee is Miss Daly. You know why that's not a guarantee of ownership? Because of fraud and forgery, right? Just because I'm looking at a deed with names, that's not sufficient evidence of ownership. Let's turn the page. So the abstractor, the result of his efforts is the abstract of title. We saw that. We've already talked about that. And then the title insurance company will issue a certificate of title to the mortgage lender. It says there, a certificate of title is a statement of opinion of the title status on the date the certificate is issued. Highlight the next sentence. A certificate of title is not a guarantee of ownership. All they can do is take what is on the face and assume it's right. But it's not always right. We've talked about it, fraud, forgery. So that second sentence is trying to say in a crude way, there are no guarantees in life, period. I'm telling you, you're going to have a question on the exam that's going to say, is an abstract of title, is a certificate of title a guarantee of ownership? There are no guarantees in life. I don't know what the answer choices would be. I just want you to know there ain't no guarantees. Period, ever. But look in the middle of page 108 where it says attorney's opinion of title. Have y'all ever heard this advice when it comes to cars? Maybe your mama told you, maybe your daddy told you, maybe your pawpaw told you, maybe you read it in a book, but have you ever heard this advice? Before you buy a used car, ask the dealership, can you take it to a mechanic first? I would think most of us have heard that. And the first couple of used cars I bought as a young man, I did not heed that advice and paid for it. I have bought many used cars. Why? Because I'm twice divorced and I got 2 daughters. I bought a bunch of damn cars. And probably the third used car, I heard that advice in my ear, my daddy saying, ask him, boy, if you can take it to a mechanic. I don't know if y'all know this. Express Oil and others like them have a new car checklist. I think the last time I paid for a new car checklist at Express Oil, I think it was $69, but that was pre-Joe Biden. It's probably $349 now. But anyway, kind of like, when you go in and get your oil change, they give you that long form showing you, we top this off, blah, 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 blah. It's kind of like that. You pay them $69, they check it all, and they, at the bottom, based on what we see, it seems to be worth what they charge, There's been 3 instances I paid $69 for that, and I chose not to buy the car based on what I got. I remember telling a friend of mine, goes, man, you just wasted $69. I said, apparently you ain't never bought a crappy used car. I did not waste $69. I probably saved myself about $5,000. So I'm heading to a point. I may be paying cash for a car. And at this point, automobile insurance full coverage is optional, right? But I could roll the dice, take the risk. So let's say I'm paying cash for a property. And I call the title insurance company. I say, how much would a title insurance policy be on this property? They say it'd be $4,200, Mr. Yarbrough. And I get off the phone. I say, holy hell, $4,200. In my mind, I'm thinking about rolling the dice, not getting title insurance. But then I hear my old man, ask him if you can take it to a mechanic. So in title world, there's a version of this, attorney's opinion of title. I can go to an attorney and say, can I get an abstract from you? And they'll put together a chain of title. And like a car, figuratively speaking, they'll look in the records with a flashlight for any liens, and they'll issue you an abstract based on what they found, but there's no insurance, kind of like Express. Or when they sold me that new car checklist for $69, if I buy the car based on the report and then the damn thing starts falling apart, does Express owe me anything? No. They gave me an opinion. Paid $69 for an opinion. So that's the thing here. I'm trying to roll the dice and not pay $4,200, but I want to go to title's version of Express Oil and get an opinion from an attorney that has no warranty or no insurance, but at least it gives you a little peace of mind. Y'all see where I'm coming from? Kind of like that Express Oil. I may not be getting automobile insurance, but the fact that they told me everything looks good gives me a little peace of mind about rolling the dice. That's all I'm looking for. Peace of mind to roll the dice. So that's what an attorney opinion. I've only bought one. And my God, I bought it in 1996. 30 years ago. Gee whiz. Paid $50 for it. Ain't no telling how much an abstract costs now. But it was $50 30 years ago. Page 109, subrogation. Again, I don't know where you are, but there's a title insurance in bold print, and below there's some bullets. And then the paragraph below the bullets, the last word in the paragraph is subrogation, bold print, highlighted. And while you highlight, I'll explain. Subrogation is a concept in insurance, all insurance, not just title insurance. For instance, automobile insurance, y'all. Let's say I get hit from behind at a red light. And they say this happens so often now because of texting and us not paying attention. People getting hit from behind, no skid marks, you know? I mean, there's cops I know say they have automobile accidents where the person hit somebody doing 80 and there were no skid marks. People just, boom. I'm in a red light. I get popped from behind and my luck, they ain't got no insurance. I do. Is my insurance gonna fix my car? They are. Right after they fix my car, what are they gonna do? Sue the dude that hit me. So if my title insurance company has got to come to my rescue and stroke a check to make bad people go away, this is a concept in all of insurance. Anytime an insurance pays a claim, they are looking for who to sue to get it back. Okay, always. Health insurance, title, all it don't matter. Who is the title insurance company after they pay out on my behalf? Who they want to sue? The person that gave me a warranty deed. Now, whether they can collect from the person that gave me the warranty deed, I don't give a damn. Y'all see what I'm saying? I'm just trying to explain the concept of subrogation to you. If they can squeeze the money out of them, you know, out of the blood out of their turnip, good for them. If not, ain't no skin off my back. But subrogation means the title insurance company will sue the person that gave you a warranty deed if they have to come forward and pay a claim. Again, guys, I have a feeling that some of y'all are hearing things for the first time in your life. But I have a feeling that even though some of these concepts are new to you, that you see how it works. Okay. You know, these new words, new concept, but I see what Mark's saying. I see how it works. Thank God. If you can get a grasp on it, that's all you need, barely a grasp, because you can build on that grasp outside of class with repetition. But just know that none of this is trigonometry. This is all within your wheelhouse. It's just going to take the repetition to learn the language. You see coverage. You see a little illustration, and you'll notice in there's a standard coverage title insurance policy and an extended coverage. Guys, can we not just agree that this is conceptually true in all insurance? Automobile insurance, health insurance, there's always a standard boilerplate policy. And then there's a juiced up policy with additional protections. That's just true in all of insurance. It's true in real estate. And now we are on page 110. Types of policies at the top. Guys, in a loan, there's two interests. If I buy a $300,000 house and I put $50,000 down, I think y'all understand that that $50,000 is equity. It's my money. That portion of equity is my interest in the property. The loan is the lender's interest in the property. The equity is my interest. If the property gets took by a missing heir, both parties want their interest protected. I want my 50,000 protected, and the lender wants the loan amount protected. So there's two policies. There's an owner's policy, which protects the owner's equity, and there is a lender's policy, which protects the lender's interest, which is the loan amount. At the bottom of page 110, the Torrent system, I've just about stopped teaching it. I don't hear that there are questions on the state exam. I'm not familiar with it because Alabama doesn't recognize it. Some states have a title registration process they refer to as the Torrens system. It was named after a man named Robert Torrens, who took a method of recording title to merchant ships in England and developed a method of recording title to real estate in America. Some states adopted it, most did not. So I don't want to teach something that there's just a slight chance you could have a question on it. So I'm going to skip it. But we are at our 15 minutes. Page 111. Please do not skip the key point review. It's all important. By rifling through this, you are cementing, for retention purposes, what we just discussed. Perfect time as you head into the quiz. When you do the quiz, do the flip back. You may begin. Whitmore, I'll come here. Right. All right, gang, so we finished our 15 minutes. I'm sorry the whiteboard's down. We don't know what it is. It's the connectivity, internet, we don't know, but I'll probably, once I get it fixed up, briefly show you this tomorrow before we start into our class. Because really for you to understand a couple of questions you could get from chapters 5, I need to show you some things on the whiteboard. It won't take but 10 minutes at the most. So right now, we're gonna call it a day. We got 3 chapters knocked out. We're gonna knock out 1 chapter tomorrow. I'm skipping 8, we're doing 9, and it's just I think 9's misplaced. I think it should have been 9, 8, 10. So we're gonna do 9 tomorrow, and then next Tuesday, we'll do 8 and 10. So y'all have a safe trip home and stay out of trouble. We'll see y'all in the morning, 10 o'clock.